Hi everyone, welcome to Bello's Designs. My name is Catherine and today I'm going to show you how to make these tiny treat boxes using some of your smallest stamps. They're perfect for small gifts or treats, and with Valentine's Day right around the corner, I know I'm always looking for quick and easy gift ideas. Let's go ahead and get started. To create our boxes today, we'll need a variety of stamps, and we'll be using the group of mini hearts LAV 238, the tree branch LAV 506, Donna LAV 863, Nia LAV 767, the Foliage Set 2 LAV 695, and I'll be using only this little leaf cluster from that set, as well as the Flowers Miniature, which is LAV 256. We'll need a variety of cardstock scraps to stamp on. So I have 4 pieces of multifarious cardstock to create 2 boxes. And these are all 3.5 by 1 3/4 inches. And we'll be stamping on those. We'll also need a couple pieces of scrap paper and a variety of colors to coordinate with our inks. So today I'll be using this bright pink and black, and I've gone ahead with my gel pen just to show you where to score the box bases. Both of these pieces are 2 inches by 8 inches, and I've scored them at 3.5 and 4.5. And then for each box, you'll need 2 pieces of 1 by 2 cardstock, and those are scored a 1/2 inch from each end. So you'll score it at 1/2 inch and then 1.5 inches for each of those pieces. For the backgrounds, we'll be using some Lavinia Mysticals. I have the Kingfisher and the Fruit Sorbet, and there is lots of mica on the bottom of these sprays, so when we use them, we're going to make sure that we shake them up really well. In addition to those, I have some acrylic sprays. So on the pink box, I'll be using the Cranberry Red and the Sun Yellow, and then on the blue box we'll be using the Sun Yellow and the Emerald Green. For inks, we'll be using Versafine Clair. I have Nocturne, Warm Breeze, Verdant Green, and Glamorous, and then a couple of Lavinia Elements inks to coordinate with those. I'll be using the Confetti and the Mermaid, along with a couple of number 7 brushes to coordinate with those ink pads. We'll be using the Mica Minerals White Sparkle by Lavinia, and then I just have a watercolor blending brush to go with that. I'll be using my white gel pen and 2 pens from my gel sparkle collection. I have the pink and the silver. Let's get started. Let's start with the pink box. So I'm just going to spray a little bit of water on my glass mat, and I'll be using that to soak up the ink. And if you have any extra scrap pieces of cardstock nearby, you might want to pull those out, because while we're doing this, you can certainly create some extra backgrounds. So I'm just going to make sure that my mica is shaken up really well in this bottle. And I think I'm going to start with the acrylic yellow and just give a little tiny spritz right in the middle. And this really goes everywhere, so just be careful with that and be aware that you might need to clean up as you go along. Let's add a little bit of the Fruit Sorbet to a few spots on my mat. And then I'm going to come back with the Cranberry Red from the acrylic. And just add a little bit in there. Okay, so now we're going to, now that we've spritzed, we're going to just dip and add some of that color to our background. And you can certainly add even a little more water if you want to give it a little bit more movement. It just helps spread some of that color out. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to set that piece aside to dry. And let's go ahead and use what's left to create the back of our box. So we'll just dip this in here. It's helpful to have a small pick tool or something to pick that up and move it with. Okay. And I'm going to set that one aside to dry. And I'm going to practice what I preach and bring back in a piece of extra cardstock. I usually keep lots of these pre-cut in my stamp studio just so I can grab whatever I need. And how cute is that? So we'll put that aside to dry. This is super easy to clean up just using a paper towel and some water. But just keep in mind that these are acrylic paints. So you want to clean them up before they dry just to keep your work area nice and clean. All right, while those are drying, let's go ahead and prep the ones for the second box, which is the black box. And I'm giving my acrylic paint a little shake, and now I've gotten it everywhere. So let me just clean that up. Maybe a good idea to keep the lids on these when you shake them. Not such a bad idea. So we'll just give that a little shake again. And a little spritz right in the middle. And now I'm going to come back with the Kingfisher. Just give that a spritz right here. A couple spots. And then the emerald green. It just complements that Kingfisher really nicely. Okay, here we go. That went a little bit over to where I didn't want it to go. And I'm not sure if I added water, so I'm going to do that right now and just give that a little bit of movement. And come back in with my extra pieces of Multifarious Cardstock. I'll scoop that up and put it aside to dry, and let's create the back. Now on the back, I want to give myself lots of space to write. So I'm going to just try to get it a little bit lighter and make sure I'm picking up lots of that yellow. Okay, we'll put those aside to dry. I'm going to clean up this giant mess I made, and I'll be back. I'm going to prepare my pink box first. Now, I just wanted to mention that if you're using some of your scrap cardstock, you might notice that it doesn't have a very smooth edge. It could be a little rough if your blade's getting a little worn, or it's just kind of been banging around in a box of scraps. In order to get a nice crisp edge, if you're a new stamper and you don't already know this trick, you could do two things to fix your cardstock. You could use a bone folder and just simply go over the edges and burnish them down. If you don't have a bone folder in your collection yet, I'm sure you probably have a stamp block, and you just want to use the edge of a clean stamp block, and you can do that with your block and get the same effect. So it's just a really nice way to make sure that the edges of your cardstock are nice and smooth, so when you blend those backgrounds, they come together nicely. All right, let's start with Nia. I'm going to stamp her first because I found that it just makes it a little bit easier to line her feet up with the edge of the tree branch. So I'm going to put down my scrap paper, and I'm going to stamp her in Nocturne. It's also a good way to make sure that she's positioned really well in the branch and that she fits into this tiny little piece of cardstock. You just clean off that edge. Got a little bit of extra ink there that we don't need. So in order to get her to fit perfectly on my piece of cardstock, I'm going to just tilt her up at an angle like so. And let's just give that ink a little bit of extra time to soak into the paper. And when we lift that off, if it's not perfect, then we'll just use a fine line marker to fill in any spots that we missed. And that looks pretty close to perfect. Let's come back in with the tree branch next, and we're only going to be using just a little bit of the branch. So I'm not even going to bother inking up the whole stamp. I'll just do the edges towards the outside of the branch. All right, whoops, excuse my head. So I'm going to come in and just look at this, and I want to line it up with her feet. this looks like a good way to do that. And because of the way she's positioned, I might just have to come back in and add a little branch under her other foot just to make it look like she's really sitting on there. So I'm just going to use a Sharpie for that. And we'll just come back in and draw out our own little branch, and it'll just look like it was supposed to be there. How about that? All right, next, let's just go ahead and bring in our miniature flowers, and I'm going to use my Glamorous ink and just add some flowers around the branch and coming down from the sky. We could leave this like this and it would be really nice as far as the background goes, but I do just want to come back with my elements and blend in a little bit around the edges and maybe darken them up just a little bit. So we'll just pick up. Let's add a little bit of detail with our gel pen. To give my main image a little bit of shimmer, I am going to use the White Sparkle Mica Minerals. And in one of my last videos, I had just refilled my palette with a few scoops of the mica, and this is what's left from that project. So all I need to do is just rehydrate it. This just honestly sits on my desk all the time. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water from my brush just to pick up a little bit of that mica, and we'll paint in her wings with it. And then add a little bit of extra shine with some sparkle. So once again, just picking up a little bit, and then just take the back of your blending brush and tap it right off of that, and you'll get a nice shimmer and sparkle all over your main image. I got a little bit on her face that I didn't intend to pick up there, so I'm just gonna mop that up and then come back in with the Sharpie after and darken it up. For the back of this box, I've chosen to use the lighter of the two background pieces, and I have a very tiny Happy Valentine's Day stamp, and I'm just going to put it right near the top, and I have lots of room to write the name of the person I'm gifting it to or a short message. When I stamp this, it's a good idea. You want to stamp it down a little bit so you're not right up at the top, so you have room to punch a hole at the end. So you'll see how we do that together. And then I'm just going to add some mini hearts to the back. All right, so that's perfect for the back of my box. So bringing back in the blue and green pieces that we created earlier, I'm going to decide which one to use for my image. And this one, I think we're going to go with this one because I like the brightness and it just gives the illusion of a little bit of sunshine coming through the trees. So let's go ahead. I'm going to move this aside for now so that I have a nice hard surface to just burnish my edges because I didn't do those beforehand. And sometimes once you put that ink down on the paper, it really shows up where you might not have seen it when it was just a piece of white paper. So if they really bother you and you don't like how they're a little bit darker at the very edge where that was happening, you can always take out your paper trimmer and just trim off a little bit from the edge, but I'm okay with that, and I like the way they look, so I'm going to leave those as they are. So for this piece, I will be using the Verdant Green, the Nocturne, the Warm Breeze, and then the Mermaid to kind of blend my edges. So to start with, I'm going to come back with my tree branch, and let's bring in our paper so we have a nice soft mat to stamp on. I'm going to put that back piece aside for now. And just come back with this, and once again, just inking up the edge of that branch with Nocturne. I think my block is sticky. And just put that down right there. That looks like a good spot for that. Right, we'll move that aside and bring Dana back in. Ink her up really well. And place her right down on that branch. All right, like so. My next step is to stamp the tree leaves in Verdant. I also stamped the mini flowers on this piece, so I'm going to come back in. I've cleaned it off, and let's just come back in with the Warm Breeze. Using my white gel pen, I'm going to add a little bit of detail right around her lantern. Just give it a little bit of a glow. And we know that with these gel pens, we need to prime them up sometimes a little bit. That's just how they work. Just give them a very light touch. Just add a little bit of highlight to her. Maybe a little on her chin. And then some to our flowers. And let's ink the edges with Mermaid just to add a little bit of depth to the outside and draw the eye into the inside. All right, you might remember that when I was splattering the mica onto my pieces, I did get a little bit on Donna's head, and it didn't look really all that great. So in order to cover up that mistake, I just took out this Sharpie that I have, and I was able to pick it up just at the Dollar Tree, so they're very inexpensive, and just use it to color in over the top of that mica, and I think we have a pretty nice image there, so I don't think we need to redo that. As I always say, there's no mistakes in stamping that we can't fix. So she is ready to go, and we're going to glue these pieces onto our boxes before we assemble the final box. And I just found that that's an easier way to make sure that you get a nice stick to with your image to your box, and it's not curling up, and if we need to, we could weight it down and give it a few minutes to dry. So we'll start with this one. So just keeping in mind that we're going to be punching a hole in the final piece, so maybe don't overdo it on the glue here. And I want to make sure those corners really stick. It's just easier to press them down and hold them before we assemble the box. And this is going to be standing up, so when you put it together, you just want to make sure that any words that you have on the back are facing the right way, so that when the box is standing up, they're not upside down. So I'm going to turn it over and then we'll just assemble the back to it. And once again, just keeping in mind that we're going to be punching a hole through the top, so maybe go a little easy on the glue at the very top. Okay, I'm going to put that aside to dry, and let's go ahead and take care of this one. I just love how that came out. Those are some real magical color combinations here. All right, and that's pretty set, so let's turn it over and we'll do the back of the box. And once again, just making sure to remember that the finished box, for the finished box, we need to make sure that our words are going to be right side up and not upside down. Okay, and we'll just press that down, and let's give that a minute to set up. And I mean, wow, just look at how magical that is. It's really beautiful. And so is this one. And we did that all with just a few bottles of spray. Okay, this has had some time to set up, so let's come back in and assemble our final box. Now, once again, I just marked out the lines that you would score. And if you don't have a scoring tool, I can link one in the description box below. So Del Bello's does have one that they sell. So if you don't have one yet, you can go ahead and snag one there. That is a really great basic tool to just add to your collection when you're just starting out. Now, before I stick this all together, I think it's going to be easier to punch the hole, but I'm going to need to tie it shut at the end. So I really am just going to eyeball this out because there's going to be treats in there, and I have those beautiful yarns that I'm using. Actually, this might be a good idea. Let's turn it upside down so we can see those words. And just eye it for the middle. And we haven't covered that up. And once we tie it together, it's okay if it doesn't line up perfectly on each side because nobody's going to notice that. So we have this one ready to go. We'll bring these back, and I'm just going to add the glue to my first piece. And you might want to just hold it for a minute to give it a chance to set up. And I know I stuck some glue on this side, but if we need to, we can always do it again. So let's just go ahead and do the other side of this. And then all we need to do here is pull this over. And I mean, it's not a watertight box, so we just want to keep our treats or our little gift item inside and to keep it from falling out the edge. And this works perfectly. So just hold it together and make sure it has lots of chance to set up. And that little glue off the edge. Just make sure it's lined up enough that you're going to have a nice square box bottom. So let's set that aside. All right, let's get this one ready to put together. So once again, I'm just going to come in and punch my little hole to make my closure. I'll do that on the front. We'll do it on the back. I'm just eyeballing it and not worried, again, that it's mathematically exact, because once it's all put together, nobody's going to know that you didn't do that. And if you don't have the Sweet Petunia glue press, it's really kind of a cool thing to have. Once you take the top off and you can stick it in there while you're using it, and there is a small piece of silicone on the bottom that keeps your ink from drying out at the tip. So this has been a really nice addition to my craft room. All right, so I'll just put a little bit of glue on here. And let's line it up to the bottom. And I'm going to make sure the fold is just flush with the edge of my box. We'll let it set up. And let's go ahead and do the other side. So just bending those at your score lines. Adding the glue to it. And lining it up at the bottom. And if we have any that comes out the side, we'll just wipe it off. There we go. You just want to make sure that you fold and burnish all these pieces before you start assembling it together, because it's a little harder to do once you start gluing it. So add lots of adhesive here. Pull this up and just once again make sure it's all lined up. The boxes that we made together today are all dried and set up, and they're ready to put the final touches on and fill with treats. So you are able to fit, with these measurements, 3 of the Ghirardelli treats or chocolate squares right into the back. Again, I also showed you that I have a pair of earrings that are ready for gifting. Really, anything that fits in the box is going to work. So let's go ahead and we'll just tie them together and finish them up. So I was finding that really 2 pieces of yarn or fibers work really well together. So I'm just going to go ahead and start at the back and bring this through to the front. And you can tie it into a little bow or a little knot or whatever works for you. I liked how the bow came out on this. And I don't know why when I tie bows, I seem to get a better look if I work with them upside down, and then I can turn them over and just fluff them out and make sure they're nice and straight. So we have that one, and here are the threads for the second one. If you want to, you could do it a little differently. Fold them in half and push it through the front to the back. Oops. Let's get a little pokey tool. Just something to push it through. And grab it from the other side. So there's one side. the other, we have that little loop in the middle, and just grab the ends and pull it through. So I'm just loving the depth of the color that I got with these sprays, and I think they're really vibrant and they create such a magical scene. I can't wait to see what you think in the comments. And if you decide to give this project a try, maybe you could share it in our Del Bello's Facebook groups. We have Del Bello's Designs Lounge, which is for projects using primarily Lavinia stamps, and Del Bello's a la carte for all other stamp lines that Del Bello sells. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.